Ever wondered if that health app on your phone
Mm-hmm.
could actually be a medical device?
Yeah.
Like it might track your steps or even your heart rate,
Right.
but is it really crossing the line into like
Yeah.
regulated territory?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the question we're going to dive deep into today.
Okay.
Exploring this crazy world of standalone software as a medical device.
It really is.
It is. And a huge shout out
Yeah.
to London Heartbeat's Z Academy in the UK
Yeah.
for their incredible educational resources. They have over 150 courses on all sorts of fascinating topics.
I know.
And you can find them on Facebook and Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube.
Lots of great stuff there.
So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future discussions like this one.
For sure.
To understand how a simple piece of software can become a regulated medical device.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's not always intuitive, so let's start with the basics. What do we even mean by standalone software in like the medical context?
So it's software that's not integrated into an actual physical device
Okay.
when it's placed on the market.
Right.
So think about an app on your smartphone or a program on your computer.
Gotcha. So it's not about the device itself.
No.
It's about what the software is actually trying to do.
Exactly. It's the intended use.
Okay.
And the European Union actually has criteria to determine if that software is intended for medical purposes.
Got it.
And that's the key.
That makes sense. So how do we even figure out if some software falls under these regulations?
Right.
Like what questions should developers even be asking?
Well, there's a sort of qualification checklist you can go through.
Okay.
The first thing is the software intended to be used for individual patients?
Okay.
That helps distinguish it from software for research or population health management.
Gotcha.
Second, does the software perform a medical action? And that could be diagnosing, monitoring vital signs, or even providing treatment recommendations.
So even like a meditation app
Yeah,
that analyzes your heart rate variability,
exactly.
that could potentially fall under this.
It could, yeah, if it's making claims about your health.
Wow. So it's not just about the software, it's about how it's being used.
It's the intended use, yeah.
Okay.
And then the third question is, does it manipulate data in a way that impacts healthcare decisions?
Okay.
Things like calculating dosages, interpreting medical images, or generating reports for treatment plans.
Wow. So it's not just what it does, it's about the consequences of the actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once you figured out that a piece of software is a medical device,
Right.
what's next?
You have to figure out its classification.
Okay, so not all medical devices are treated the same, right?
No, not at all.
Like a bandage is different from a heart implant?
Exactly.
So how does that work?
They're classified based on their risk level, ranging from classico, which are low-risk devices like bandages and stethoscopes,
Gotcha.
all the way up to class 3.
Wow.
High-risk devices like implants and life support systems.
So where does software usually fit into that?
It depends on the intended use and the potential risks.
Okay.
So, a simple app to track your meds might be Class I.
Okay.
But software that controls a drug delivery pump
Right.
would likely be Class 3 because the stakes are a lot higher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if that goes wrong,
Exactly.
so the classification determines how much scrutiny and testing is needed
Absolutely.
to make sure it's safe and effective.
That's right.
Okay, so that brings us to the essential requirements,
Yeah.
which are like the fundamental safety and performance standards.
Right.
How many are we talking about?
There are 79 of them.
79. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Okay, we don't have to go through all of them,
No, we don't.
but they cover everything from the design and manufacturing to labeling, usability,
That's
performance.
pretty much everything, yeah.
Can you give us an example of one?
Yeah, one of the key principles is inherently safe design.
Okay,
So the software needs to minimize risks from the very beginning.
gotcha.
That could involve things like safeguards to prevent errors,
Okay,
making sure the software is robust and reliable,
right.
and things like alarms and user warnings.
So it's not just about the software working right.
No.
It's about what happens if it goes wrong
Exact.
and how to mitigate those risks.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach to safety.
Yeah.
It considers the technology, the user, and the potential consequences.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad there are these requirements in place to protect patients.
It's important, yeah.
And it's not just about the technical side of it.
No.
It's about the user interface, the instructions,
Yes.
making sure it's easy to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't want to have a frustrating experience
No.
when it comes to your health.
No, not at all.
So to help developers navigate these 79 essential requirements,
Right.
there are harmonized standards.
Yes.
Can you explain what those are?
They're best practice guidelines that are developed by experts.
Okay.
They're not mandatory, but they provide a clear roadmap for meeting the essential requirements.
So it's like blueprints they can follow
Exactly.
to make sure their software is safe.
Right.
Okay, so 2 key standards are.
IEC 62304, which focuses on a software development lifecycle,
Okay.
and ISO 4971, which deals with risk management.
So one is how to develop it safely.
Yeah.
And the other is how to identify the risks.
That's it.
So if a developer follows all those guidelines, meets all the requirements,
Yes.
and they've consulted the standards,
Right.
what's next?
The next step is getting the CE marking.
Okay, I've seen that on everything.
It's everywhere.
What does that mean?
It means that the product meets the European Union's health and safety
Okay.
and environmental protection standards.
So it's a stamp of approval.
It is. It's like a passport that allows it to be sold in the European Economic Area.
It's a symbol of trust.
Yes, exactly.
So how does a developer go about getting that?
Well, it depends on the classification of the device.
Okay.
For Class I devices, manufacturers can self-declare conformity.
So they just check their own work.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
They assess their product against the essential requirements,
Okay.
draw up a declaration of conformity, and affix the CE marking.
Is there a catch?
Well, even for Class I devices,
Okay.
if they are sterile or have a measuring function,
Right.
like a thermometer,
Okay.
they require a notified body to assess those specific aspects.
So there's still some oversight,
Yes, there is.
even for the lowest risk devices.
That's right.
Okay, what about higher risk devices?
Yeah.
Like Class Thea, IBIN 3.
Right. For those, a notified body plays a much bigger role.
And what's a notified body?
It's an independent organization designated by an EU country
Okay.
to assess the conformity of certain products before they can be sold.
So like independent auditors.
Did
They
it-
come in and say, yep, this is good.
That's it.
Okay, so some well-known ones are.
NSAI in Ireland and BSI in the UK.
Okay, so for those higher risk devices, the developer has to get a notified body involved
They do.
to get the CE marking.
That's right.
Okay.
The notified body will thoroughly audit the developer's quality management system and technical documentation.
So that's pretty intense.
It is, but it's necessary to make sure these devices meet the highest standards.
Right, because they can have a big impact on people's health.
Absolutely.
So once the CE marking is secured, are we done?
Not quite.
Oh, there's more.
Here's one more step.
What is it?
Registration.
Right.
It varies depending on the country.
Okay.
But in Ireland, it's the Health Products Regulatory Authority, or HPRA.
So not all software has to register with the HPRA?
No, not all of it.
Okay, what's the rule there?
Generally, it's not required for Class I devices
Okay.
unless they're sterile, have a measuring function, or are what are called system or procedure packs.
Gotcha.
However, all manufacturers of custom-made devices, regardless of their class,
Okay.
need to register.
So custom-made devices are a special case?
They are.
Okay.
Also, all classes of in vitro diagnostic software or IVD software need to be registered.
Okay, so that's like a specific type.
Wow.
Okay,
Right.
so for the developers who need to register,
Yes.
what do they do?
They give the HPRA information about their company
Okay.
and the software they're putting on the market.
So the HPRA can keep track of it
That's right, and conduct audits.
to make sure everything's following the rules.
Exactly.
So it's not a one-time registration.
No,
There's
no,
ongoing audits as well
that's right.
to make sure everyone's playing by the rules.
This is an ongoing process.
Okay, so what happens after the software is on the market?
That's when post-market surveillance kicks in.
What's that?
It's a system for monitoring the performance of devices after they've been released.
Okay.
Manufacturers have to collect and analyze data on any issues,
Okay.
including malfunctions, failures, or even problems with the instructions.
Why is that so important?
Well, with software, there can be bugs
Okay.
or unforeseen interactions that might not have shown up in testing.
Right. You don't know how people are going to use it.
Exactly. And the way people use it can evolve over time,
Oh, wow.
leading to new risks.
So it's about continuous improvement.
Yes, absolutely.
So what happens if a manufacturer finds a problem?
They have to report it to the authorities like the HPRA,
Okay.
and then they need to implement corrective actions.
What kind of actions?
It could be fixing a bug, issuing a safety warning, or even recalling the software.
So there's a whole system in place,
There is.
even after it's being used.
Yes.
Okay, what's indirect harm?
So with traditional devices, it's clear how a malfunction could harm a patient.
Right, like a faulty implant.
Exactly.
Okay.
But with software, it might be less obvious.
How so?
Imagine a fitness app that encourages excessive exercise
Okay.
without taking into account someone's health conditions.
Right.
That could lead to injury or even make a health problem worse, even if the app itself is working fine.
Wow, so it's about the bigger picture of how it's used.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does the HPRA do in all of this?
They do a lot.
Right.
They provide guidance to manufacturers on how to comply. They conduct audits to make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to.
Oh.
And they investigate any reports of incidents or non-compliant products.
Oh, they're the watchdog.
Yes, they are.
Okay, this has been really insightful.
Good, I'm glad.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from defining standalone software
Yeah,
to the regulations, classifications, and post-market surveillance.
absolutely. It's a complex landscape.
It is, and I think it's relevant to everyone these days.
It is. With all these health and wellness apps,
Yeah.
it's important to understand the boundaries.
Between just a general wellness app and something that's actually regulated.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
But we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
We'll be back soon to explore more of this evolving landscape
I'm looking forward to it.
and discuss the possibilities and challenges ahead.
It's going to be interesting.
It is.
It's really amazing how software in healthcare is like changing so fast.
Yeah.
We've gone from these basic tracking tools
Yeah?
to these really sophisticated applications that can
Yeah.
analyze complex data
Yeah.
and even help with diagnoses.
It's incredible.
It is.
But that raises some questions about regulation and oversight.
Absolutely.
How do we make sure all of this is being used safely and responsibly?
That's where the HPRA and those regulatory bodies come in.
Okay.
Their role is not just to like enforce the rules,
Right.
but also to support those manufacturers
Okay.
and help them navigate this whole world.
So it's more of a collaboration
It is.
between the regulator and the industry
Yeah.
to make sure everything's safe.
Exactly. The HPRA even provides guidance documents,
Okay.
workshops, and one-on-one consultations
Wow.
to help developers understand those regulations
That's great.
and make sure they're meeting those standards.
So they're really trying to foster innovation,
Yes.
but also protect people.
A balance. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who's using like a health or wellness app
Right.
and they're wondering if it's actually a medical device?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Like, how can they even tell?
The first thing to look for is that CE marking we talked about.
Okay.
If it has that, it's a good sign it's gone through all the checks.
Okay, but what if it doesn't have the marking?
It doesn't necessarily mean it's not a medical device.
Okay.
It could mean it's still being developed.
Right.
Or it's not for the European market.
Okay.
But it's definitely worth looking into.
What else should users keep in mind?
Just be cautious of any health claims an app is making.
Okay.
If it promises to diagnose or treat something,
Right.
do your research and talk to a doctor.
Yeah, because it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
It is.
But software isn't a replacement for a doctor.
Exactly.
So if you have any problems with an app, like a glitch or a concern about the accuracy,
Absolutely.
who do you report that to?
Both the app developer and the regulatory authority.
Okay, so both.
Yeah, like the HPRA in Ireland.
Okay.
They take those reports very seriously.
So it's a shared responsibility.
It is.
Everyone has to play their part.
Exactly. Developers, regulators, and users.
So what are some of the trends and challenges in this world of software as a medical device?
One big trend is AI and machine learning in healthcare.
Oh, yeah. I've been hearing about that.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
We're seeing software that can analyze complex data,
Right.
make predictions, and even help with diagnoses and treatment decisions.
That sounds like science fiction.
It does a bit, doesn't it?
But are there challenges with that?
Oh, absolutely. There are new challenges for regulation.
Like what?
How do you assess the safety of software that's constantly learning?
Oh, that's a good point.
And how do you make sure those algorithms are unbiased?
That's huge.
Those are big questions.
It's like a Pandora's box.
Yeah, it is.
Full of possibilities, but also maybe some problems.
And then there's cybersecurity.
Okay, yeah, that's a big one.
With all this interconnected software and cloud computing,
Right.
there's more risk of data breaches and cyber attacks.
It's scary to think about,
It is.
especially with all our personal information in there.
Exactly. So developers need to really prioritize cybersecurity.
From the beginning.
Yes, and build in strong safeguards to protect data.
So what does that look like?
Things like encryption, secure communication protocols.
So it's not just about one thing.
No, it's a multi-layered approach.
Okay, and then what about interoperability?
Yes, that's a big one too.
What does that even mean?
It means the ability of different systems to talk to each other
Okay,
and exchange data.
gotcha.
We have all these apps, wearables, and electronic health records, and they need to be able to communicate.
Otherwise, it's all in these separate silos.
Exactly, and you can't use the information effectively.
So interoperability is important for things like remote monitoring.
Yes, and personalized medicine and population health management.
Can you give an example?
Imagine your fitness tracker sending data to your doctor,
Okay.
or a research study using anonymous data from thousands of users.
That's amazing.
It is.
So it's about creating a connected healthcare system
Exactly, where data flows freely and securely.
to help people.
Yes.
But that takes a lot of collaboration
It does, yeah.
between developers, healthcare providers, and policymakers.
Everyone needs to be on board.
So what are some key takeaways you hope people will remember?
Well, the line between wellness software and medical devices is getting blurry.
Okay.
So it's important for everyone to understand the regulations
Right.
and be aware of the risks and benefits.
So being informed is crucial.
Absolutely. The technology is changing all the time.
Yeah.
And the regulations are trying to keep up.
Right.
So we have to stay informed and be adaptable.
Okay. This has been a really fascinating conversation.
It has.
We've barely scratched the surface of this topic.
No, we haven't.
But it's clearly a big deal.
It is.
Standalone software is playing a huge role in healthcare,
Yeah,
and we need to talk about it.
absolutely. Open and informed discussions are essential.
Well, we've covered a lot today,
We have.
but we're not done yet.
No.
Join us again soon for the last part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll wrap things up and share some final thoughts.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been exploring this world of standalone software as a medical device.
It's a fascinating area.
It is, and it's kind of amazing to see how technology is, changing healthcare,
Yeah.
but it's really important to understand the implications
Absolutely.
and make sure all these tools are being used responsibly.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot, haven't we?
We have.
From how the EU defines a medical device
Yeah.
to all the complexities of that post-market surveillance.
Yeah.
And the ethical considerations, of course.
Yeah, we talked about cybersecurity, data privacy, all that stuff. Those
Yeah.
are big challenges
They are.
for everyone involved.
Yeah, for developers, for regulators, for users.
It's a new field,
It is relatively new.
so it's changing all the time.
The technology's evolving and our understanding of it is changing too.
So we have to stay informed
Absolutely.
and be ready to adapt.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways you want listeners to remember?
I think the main thing is that we're all involved in this.
Yeah,
Whether we're developing, regulating, or using this software,
we all have a part to play.
we do in making sure it's used safely and ethically.
So it's all about collaboration and transparency.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important for people to think critically about the software they use.
Yeah.
To understand how it can impact their health.
And advocate for responsible development.
Yeah, where can listeners go to learn more about all this?
There's a lot of information online from regulatory agencies like the HPRA
Oh,
to industry groups and even universities.
right.
And of course, London Heartbeat's Z Academy.
Yeah, they're a great resource.
They are.
For anyone who wants to learn more about healthcare and technology,
Yeah, they have over 150 courses on all sorts of things.
and they're on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube,
It's a great way to stay informed.
so be sure to subscribe.
Yeah.
So I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive
It does.
into this world of standalone software as a medical device.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
It has, and it's a topic that's going to keep, being important.
Absolutely. It's going to shape the future of healthcare.
It is. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring this amazing world of digital health.
Until next time.
Until next time.